She stood patiently in line at the upscale downtown bank, dressed in a simple cardigan, worn flats, and holding a small envelope. To most, she looked like someone asking for directions. To the bank staff, she looked like someone without significance. No one greeted her. No one offered help. But when she finally reached the counter, the cold politeness turned into quiet cruelty. "Are you sure you're in the right place?" the teller asked, barely hiding her smirk. "This branch only handles private clients," added another, loud enough for the waiting room to hear. Behind her, someone chuckled. A man in a tailored suit glanced at her sneakers and shook his head. She did not argue. She did not raise her voice. She simply said, "I'm here to make a deposit." And that was when the laughter began, quiet, sharp, and full of judgment. What they did not know was that inside that small envelope was a certified transfer document worth over $5 million. And what they would never have guessed was that her husband, the man whose name was etched on the bank's founding plaque, was already walking through the door. And when he found out how she was treated, this would no longer be a bank. It would be a lesson. Her name was Zara Malik, calm, grounded, and never one to seek attention. At 35, she had built a life defined by intention, not indulgence. She preferred handwritten notes over emails, bookstores over boutiques, and honest conversations over curated perfection. She lived simply, not because she had to, but because she chose to. That morning, she walked into the bank carrying a discreet envelope, a set of documents to finalize a philanthropic investment. The money was meant for a school rebuilding project in a rural village, part of a foundation she quietly helped run. Her husband, Rahil Malik, had insisted she let one of their staff handle it. This could be done with a single call, he had said. But Zara had smiled and replied, "I don't mind doing things the old way." So she went. No security, no assistance, no high-profile introductions, just a woman with a purpose. What she didn't expect was the response. From the moment she stepped inside, the energy shifted. Tellers whispered. A floor manager glanced over and turned away. She was passed from one counter to another like a misplaced file. By the time she reached the private wealth window, the woman behind the desk looked up at her with a practiced expression, polite on the surface, dismissive underneath. "I'm here to finalize a deposit," Zara said, handing over her documents. The clerk raised an eyebrow. "This section is reserved for our priority clients." "I understand," Zara replied calmly. "I believe you'll find the account number qualifies." The woman took the envelope with 2 fingers, as if it might soil her manicure. As she scanned it, her expression shifted, but only slightly. "Just a moment," she said curtly, standing and walking to the back. Zara remained standing. Behind her, another client muttered, "Probably a fraud case. They always dress simple to get sympathy." She heard it, but she didn't turn. She had learned long ago that real wealth was not in what you wore, but in how you carried yourself. And in the next 2 minutes, that truth would become impossible for anyone in that room to ignore. Because Rahil, the man they had never expected to walk into their lobby, was about to arrive. And when he saw how his wife had been treated, he would not raise his voice. He would raise the standard. Zara remained by the counter, her hands gently folded in front of her, the envelope now sitting on a marble desk behind the glass. The bank manager had joined the teller now, both leaning over the documents, whispering in tones just low enough to be passive, but pointed enough to suggest disbelief. She must be mistaken. Someone probably gave her these papers by accident. There's no way she's on the Malik account. From the corner, another customer snorted with a laugh, nudging his friend. She probably printed them at home. Zara heard it all. Still, she said nothing, because she had walked through boardrooms with that same envelope and seen the same reaction. People mistaking silence for ignorance, simplicity for status. She had never needed to convince anyone of her worth. But today the insult was heavier, not for her sake, but because the donation was meant for children who had nothing. And this bank, built on her husband's name and legacy, was treating her like she didn't even deserve to walk through its doors. Finally, the manager returned. "We're going to need to verify this with our corporate team," he said, avoiding eye contact. "It's a large transaction and, well, we need to confirm you're authorized to handle it." Zara met his gaze. "The authorization letter's inside the envelope, with the account details. My name is listed there." "Yes," he said, forcing a tight smile. "But we still have to follow procedure." Zara nodded once. "Of course, as long as you follow it with everyone." He did not reply. Behind her, another clerk whispered, "I think she's stalling, probably trying to delay before the paperwork catches up to her." The line had grown. A few clients stepped aside to avoid standing near her. One woman clutched her purse tighter, and through it all, Zara stood still. Not because she lacked options, but because she refused to match their smallness with noise. Then the lobby doors opened, and the temperature in the room changed. Rahil Malik entered, tall, calm, unmistakable. His presence didn't demand attention, but it received it instantly. Phones lowered, conversation stopped. Even the bank staff, who had not recognized Zara, recognized him, the billionaire philanthropist, the founder of Malik Holdings, the man whose signature had approved the last 5 major capital expansions for the very bank they were standing in. He saw her instantly, his wife, and the look in his eyes changed from warmth to steel. He walked directly to her, kissed her cheek, and asked gently, "All set?" Before she could answer, the manager rushed forward. "Mr. Malik, we didn't know you were coming today. Is everything all right?" Rahil looked past him to the counter. "My wife was here to finalize a donation deposit." The manager swallowed. "Yes, sir, but we needed to verify." "Verify what?" Rahil asked, his tone still even. "The account you've worked with for 8 years? The name that's on every document she brought you? Or did you just think she didn't look the part?" The silence was louder than any confrontation. Rahil turned slightly. "Is this how you treat every woman who walks in without a luxury bag and bodyguards? Or just the ones who choose dignity over display?" No one moved. No one answered. And that was answer enough. Rahil took the envelope from the marble counter without asking. He opened it with practiced precision and held up the signed transfer letter for all to see. "I issued this personally," he said. "The funds were transferred from our foundation's account, which, I believe, is your bank's largest charitable client." The teller said nothing. The manager cleared his throat and tried again. "Mr. Malik, if we had known she was your—" Rahil cut him off, voice calm but razor sharp. "That's the problem. You shouldn't need to know who she's married to in order to treat her with respect." He turned slightly so that everyone, customers, staff, even the security guard, could hear. "Let me be absolutely clear. My wife does not need to wear diamonds, heels, or a name tag with my last name to justify her presence in this building." Zara remained silent by his side, calm, composed, just as she had been since the moment she walked in. She was handling a transaction that would fund clean drinking water and rebuild a school. She was doing work that matters, and she was doing it with patience, in the face of humiliation. Whispers rippled through the lobby now. Not laughter this time, but discomfort, guilt. The woman who had clutched her purse tighter lowered her gaze. The suited man who had mocked Zara looked toward the exit. Rahil continued. "You judged her, not by her words or her credentials or the documents she brought, but by her clothes, her quiet, her refusal to perform wealth the way you're used to seeing it." He looked at the manager. "And what does that say about this institution?" The manager opened his mouth, but closed it again. Rahil turned to Zara. "Would you like to complete the deposit?" She nodded. "Yes." He stepped aside and let her walk back to the counter. The same teller who had smirked before now couldn't meet her eyes. Zara placed the documents down again. "This is for the Kidmet school project. The wires should be immediate." The teller nodded. "Yes, ma'am." "Ma'am." Now she was ma'am. Rahil looked at the room one final time. "This is your opportunity," he said, "to choose whether you want to serve people or size them up." Then he reached for Zara's hand. They turned, walked toward the glass doors, and this time no one dared whisper a word. Because they had seen something rare. A woman who never raised her voice, but changed the temperature of the room. A man who didn't flaunt his power, he used it to protect hers. And a lesson no one would forget, that humility, when paired with quiet confidence, has more weight than any wealth ever could. Outside the bank, the sun had dipped behind the skyline. The street was busy, but for Zara and Rahil, everything felt still. They walked in silence for a few moments, hand in hand, the quiet between them filled with more understanding than words could express. "You did not have to come," Zara said softly. "I know," Rahil replied, "but I needed to." She looked at him, calm as ever. "I wasn't angry." "I was," he said simply, "but not because they did not know who you were, because they thought you had to be someone to matter." Zara smiled faintly. "That's the world we live in. The ones who whisper the loudest usually know the least." They stopped at the curb as their car pulled up. The driver stepped out quickly, opening the back door. Zara turned before getting in and glanced back at the building. "It's strange," she said. "I've walked into boardrooms full of billionaires and been treated like a peer. And yet, a front desk in my own city needed proof before showing basic respect." Rahil nodded. "Which is why we'll keep doing what we do, building more than wealth, shifting perspective, quietly." Inside the bank, the manager sat in his office, staring at a disciplinary memo he knew was coming. The teller stared at the glass doors, still rattled by what had happened. And around the lobby, conversations had changed, not because of fear, but because of realization. Later that evening, Zara placed the confirmation receipt for the deposit into her foundation's journal. Another school rebuilt. Another project underway. Another life touched, no headlines, no credit, just purpose. Just a woman who walked into a bank and left with something no one could ignore. Grace. Even when no one gave it first. Zara never mentioned the incident again. She did not post about it, didn't complain to executives, and didn't seek an apology. Because her dignity wasn't shaken. It was revealed. She had walked into a place that measured people by appearances and left behind a standard no title could match. And for everyone in that lobby, one truth echoed long after she left. Sometimes the most powerful person in the room is the one you dismissed. Have you ever been judged by how you looked, what you wore, or how quietly you carried yourself? Or maybe you've witnessed someone prove the world wrong, not with noise but with calm certainty. Share your story in the comments. Your experience might remind someone else to keep their head high when the world tries to shrink them. And if this story reminded you that character is louder than credentials, subscribe, hit the bell, and stay close. Because we tell stories that don't just entertain, they reveal truth. Until next time, remember, the richest people are not always in designer suits. Sometimes they're in silence, in simplicity, and in the strength to walk away without needing to be seen.